Welcome back. And today, our good friend, Ms. Tom Hafer, is going to discuss about it to reduce the influence of the Department of Education. Good afternoon, Mr. Hafer.
Good afternoon, Dr. Liu. Good to see you again. Today, we'll talk a little bit about the Department of Education. Some politicians have suggested that it isn't really doing anything, and should it really be a cabinet level department? And what are they doing with all of the money? So today, we'll take a look at that. Title of this talk is Drop Dead, dead being the Department of Education. What has the Department of Education done for us? Well, one thing they've done is spend money. Here's a chart of the budget for the Department of Education ever since its creation under President Jimmy Carter in 1979. And if you look out here in the last 20 years, they've had budgets of a bit over $50 billion most years. So over 20 years, that's $1 trillion. And that doesn't count all the money that was spent before. So what have we gotten for that money? Well, here's a chart of the SAT scores for critical reading over here and math. And then the critical reading, I'll get into some details, please bear with me, but they changed the test in 2006 and made it into reading and writing, and then changed it back later. And so here are the scores in reading from the inception of Department of Education in 1979 out here to 2016, and then down here all the way to 2021. And then here's math. What happened? Well, so until 2025, the reading scores stayed basically flat. The math did improve somewhat. But then in 2005, everything started to go downhill. So what's going on? Why is this? In 2005, they changed a portion of the test and made the reading into two separate things, which were reading and writing. And so they both went downhill. So in 2016, people were complaining that the SAT test was inequitable. It was, how can it possibly be that we're getting worse and worse after spending all this money? So they changed it again in 2016, and they eliminated the writing portion, made it back to just reading, and they basically made most tests easier. The reading and the math all of a sudden jumped up, not because people got suddenly very smart, but because the test got easier. But then, unfortunately, things continued their downward trend over here in math in 2016 and onward. Now, some people have said, oh, well, the downward trends just correlate with higher poverty. Well, I looked at that, and here, for example, is the scores between 2006 and 2016 that were in a downward trend. And yet poverty, although it did go up during the Great Recession, then went back down. And then over here in the 2020, 2021 area where scores were going down a lot, poverty was very low. So I don't think that the poverty explanation really cuts it. You might say, well, okay, maybe the tests are going down, but we're still number one, right? We're still doing really well educationally compared to other countries. So here's a list of the rank order of countries on standardized international tests in science over here on the left, math in the middle, and reading on the right. So how are we doing? So here's the United States. Science, not even in the top 10, maybe about 20th. Math, not even in the top 20. Reading, not quite so bad, maybe about number 20. But basically in math, we are lower than essentially every Asian and European country. So we could do better. But this isn't even the whole story. There's more. So this graph shows the standardized test gaps between whites and blacks over the years. And it shows them for reading, age 9, age 17, math, age 9, age 17. And if you look, until during the Reagan and early Bush years, things got better. Department of Education seemed like it was doing its job, trying to get everybody a better education. Same thing over here in math. But then when the spending went up, starting roughly in 1990 and under the Clinton administration, suddenly the gap started to widen out again. And there's another feature. At age 9, the score gap is 26. By the time they're 17, it's 29. The longer you stay in school, the worse the gap becomes. Over here in math, the score gap is 23 for the 9-year-olds, 28 for the 17-year-olds. Well, this only goes through 2004. Maybe we've been doing better since then. So let's have a look. Here are SAT scores by ethnicity broken out from 2007 through 2023. So up here at the top are Asians. So they've actually been doing somewhat better. Everybody else basically flat for the whole period. And so how's the gap been going? Well, here's the white versus black gap in 2007, and here it is in 2023. Basically not changed very much. So what have we been getting for all this money that we've been spending? So here what I've done to try to get to the bottom line is I've just replicated the graphs that I showed before, but I've taken, because the reading graph only goes through 2016, I've taken the part down here and I just put the end result up here. And in math, it already went through 2022. So everything is fine. So what have we achieved with the $1 trillion+ that has been spent on education by the Department of Education? Well, basically, we are exactly where we were in 1972, before the Department of Education existed. So first, what has the Department of Education done to improve education for all Americans? And what would happen if a private business had these results? So I would venture to say that the CEO would be fired and the company would be dissolved. If you spend trillions of dollars with no results, what have you accomplished? So that ends my presentation.
The Department of Education is just a new branch to waste money and don't deliver any good result. And they keep reduce their standard of test, but they still cannot deliver a better result. So it's time to rethink. At least we can have the discussion of should we drop it or just keep the current thing going on.
Oh, it does do useful things. It does provide money that schools need. It does provide scholarship money, but it does not deserve a cabinet level position. It should be made a department under Health and Human Services, because that's what it is. Education is a human service. And that's where it should be. Its budget should probably be reduced, because a lot of that money has really just fed the growth of the teachers' unions. And in turn, they have created huge numbers of mandates that have to do with the rights of males during accusations of sexual misconduct and who gets to use the girls' bathroom. And those mandates have resulted in huge additions to the staff members of schools, doubling, sometimes tripling, quadrupling the number of staff that are required. And those people don't help to educate the kids. In fact, in many cases, they're counterproductive, but now they're part of the fixed overhead cost of the institution. That's what they've been doing with all the money that started coming in during the Clinton administration and subsequently.
Good point. And I also noticed that, so although my sample size is small, just my kid, I saw all his teachers basically are all women. Actually only his photographer teacher is a guy. So I mean, the gender ratio is so disproportionately preferred to female. And for this result, I don't hear people complain about the gender gap.
When I was younger, most of my teachers, not all, were female. And in some respect, that was because other professions were not really open to women. So they were educated women were kind of forced into a few professions, teaching, nursing, things like that. And that was fine. We got some great teachers out of that. Why that is still true, I'm not certain, because women are, I think, more than welcome in basically any profession in the United States today.
Yeah. So at my time, when I was a kid in China, I still have some male teachers and I also have good female teachers. I think the combination, although it's not like a one-to-one, but it's not as disproportionately as my kid has. So yeah, that's something I just noticed. I don't say it's good or bad. I just say sometimes it happens and it doesn't necessarily related to discrimination, or the mentality of equity doesn't necessarily apply to every area. That's a good discussion for today. Thank you. And I look forward to have another conversation with you next time.
See you then.